Wayne, Ellen, and Sally here on 14th of June 2012, 10:57 p.m. Here I am going to be practicing from the book Double Dare that David Bain put together. Here he is. And tomorrow night I'm doing a reading at the Stella Espresso up north. So let me practice by reading part of the Scarlet Sponge. I want to see how long, the reading part takes. Is clock, of course, is timing this. The Scarlet Sponge. 15 minutes past the present. It is late September as I type these words, and I've outlived far too many writers and artists, some to suicide, some to simple allergies or cowardly cancer. I couldn't die if I wanted to because I'd write about it instead. Might as well get this out of the way first. The Scarlet Sponge in question was my brain after I was hit by a car in 1989. I'll be writing everything about that event later in this confessional. Even now, on the best of days, it will pulse away its squiggly veins like a strange mask above my eyelids, like Poe's telltale heart. And now I'm at 15 minutes, so it's time to tell the tale. I have 37 visible scars. I'll be telling you about some of them, describing them in detail. Back. Here's the most recent one right here. Can you see it? It's a lanyap for the viewers. Describing them in detail, as I said. Outside, the wind is pressing against the alcove in which I live most of my waking hours, not giving a damn that I turned 52 just weeks ago. It's a Friday night and I'm writing again, keeping my journals. None of them stay private for long. In fact, most everything I put to paper eventually sees print in some form. I leave it up to the reader to decide just how much of what they witness is true, which fact to separate from what fiction. There are moments when I feel absolutely overwhelmed by the volume of work. Novels, stories, textbook articles, and death tributes since Peggy and Adramia published my first story close to 30 years ago. There are those who would have larger bodies of work. Many will complete a piece of flash fiction before I finish this paragraph. All because of my werewolf claws, my one-finger typing, all made worse by the winds pounding against my neighbor's solar panel like hollow pulse beats. Just a few days ago, I told a girl with wheat-colored hair at an all-night diner that all I am is a writer, because if I did not write, I would be a universal monster, a Frankenstein. 2. The L's Have Eyes, 1986. Some individuals believe that it all began at night in the spring of 1983 on the elevated tracks at Western and Cermak. The night Keita McLean died and Dennis Cassidy was born. They wanted to tell me that, yes, that murder had happened, and yes, the killer was not made of words typed on a Smith Corona Galaxy 12. None of it happened. Maybe I damned myself early on by narrating everything. 3 stories involving that bastard Cassidy, rapid transit, take the A train, and bleeding between the lines. The first story didn't even have one word of dialogue, but no, I never saw a murder committed by a man wearing Red Ked's faded pink. Plenty of pro writers noticed those stories, though, but I never got the cover blurb that would get me noticed by you viewers on the other side of my movie screen. The new face of horror of the old asshole of ennui. It never mattered in the end. Back then, when I was an angry monster, a Frankenstein not understood, unable to convey the pain as a dull blade stropping my nerve endings. Working at a terrible job in a South Loop street that constantly fidgeted with dressed-up zombies who carried nicotine fits around them like gray auras. And I wrote my journals at night, sewing the words together, if you don't mind me sticking with a Frankenstein metaphor. Everyone else in the neighborhood is long asleep, and I'm allowed to feel immortal, to create monsters in my memories. Long shot of writer in pensive mood, hunched over his blue manual typewriter, brooding and indecisive. Freeze frame. 3. Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, 1977. It was Memorial Day of 1977 when the first tangible Images stayed in my head, celluloid glued to the insides of my eyeballs. I couldn't possibly realize that spark of one life was lit by the evil and despicable events that I witnessed that afternoon. Am I being melodramatic? Well, shit, this is really hard. When I wrote Lover Doll, a novella that reflected on my childhood days at a rehabilitation clinic, I became ill. Each night as I added more pages, more horrid memories, I would vomit in my garbage can. Nasty things occurred at that clinic back in the 60s and early 70s. When men walked on the moon, I was picking up poker chips in a sterilized white room and being timed behind a one-way mirror. I never made friends during my visits because some kids just stopped showing up. They had died. Simple as that. They had died. But the murder and rapid transit never happened. See how I blur the lines? Maybe this is your first visit. You don't know me well enough to know that I can never really tell if what I'm recalling is true or simply a waking nightmare. I don't flip a scarred coin or spin a wheel or buy a vowel. It comes down to this, whether you know it or not, what follows happened, every cock-knocking word of it. Memorial days where people would pass and futures they think are theirs, but have always belonged to someone else. A day when a familiar voice is nothing compared to a familiar face. I wrote those words in my commonplace book that I carry with me to write down my story titles and bits of conversation, blurred images of the street when on a speeding bus. I couldn't write for shit in 1977, but I had been writing poetry and then haiku. The far end of that long tunnel of words. Stitched fact to fiction, exposition to exploitation. Let's talk about the Wolfmen, plural. Dahmer in Milwaukee, beaten to death in prison. Our trifecta in Illinois. John Wayne Gacy dead from lethal injection. Larry Eiler from AIDS, and Richard Speck from a heart attack. Speck who killed the nurses. Speck who made people on the south side lock their doors and stop sleeping on their porches when the night sweltered. I have my own serial killers. Dennis Cassidy was the first. Then I gave them nicknames, like the newspapers did with Son of Sam. Francis Madsen Hay, the painkiller. Jimmy Dvorak, every mother's son. Gary Windall, the uptown slasher. Fictional characters in a real world, one we all share. Where am I going with this? Because the Wolfmen were the true monsters. After high school graduation, they'd end up working at Speedy Lube or Best Buy or selling insurance. But before that, as with the names listed above, they'd committed terrible deeds. As with those same names, I thought that the Wolfmen would find righteous punishment. That's what I actually believed. 4. Son of Frankenstein, 1977. Continued. Fallon Ridge was due west of Chicago. If you followed 79th Street past the old section of Belmont, you know you were there because the street was framed by Lana's Tapped Out Tap and the Magic Touch. Alcohol and a full frontal nudity didn't mix in Cook County, so the solution was simple. Set up what amounted to a mobile home full of booze right next to the door at quote-unquote Club 79. Then come watch a show or sit it out or tapped out after the lap dances emptied your wallet. More taverns per capita than any other city in the country. Google it, I'll wait. These assholes I survived 12 years of my life with, ending up at Carl Wagner High, past the viaduct on Walcott. Southside Irish Roman Catholics waiting on graduation and guzzling old style and Drury's. The girls drinking TJ Swan Mellow Nights. If the guys couldn't get into strip clubs, buying booze from Lana's was way past easy. Everyone would sit on concrete pilings around Fallon Lake, which was really no more than a sewage pond, courtesy of the South Sickney Sanitary District. Every clique you could think of were out there that Monday in May, the football jocks, the Barbies, and the Missy Prissies. A carload of Jordanians, best known for playing football and talking about escaping the Middle East. I was with the M&M crowd, mix and match. The others had named us back in freshman year, or Max and Mitch when they thought they were being funny. We were the ones too tall and gangly, too effeminate, pimpled or crippled or retarded. We should have never brought Jimmy Corcoran with us. Because of that, I'm damned to hell. For being the most sober, we were the last to figure it out. Hasselfang had pulled his junkyard stray down the hill tied it with a strap to a small tree. The football squad circled Corky, their nickname, not for Cork, Michael, not ours. Everything was sudden blur in the bright daylight. Bill Marquardt and Dickie Chimella blocked me, Burvid and Swanson, from getting close to the others. All we could hear were Jimmy Corcoran's stutters. Jack Gallagher, the quarterback of the Wagner Wolverines, dragged Jimmy over to the small tree. The cheerleading squad, Marlene Van Valkenburg, Doreen Doini, and Jeannie Put Your Weenie into Leanie, cheered them on, whopping and flashing their bras. We watched as Mr. Touchdown had Jimmy by the neck, one arm twisted behind his back, pulling the dog over so it straddled Jimmy's skinny frame. The dog stumbled over his face. Linda Oswald stuck her hand down her jeans, and Jackie Barzak made kissy faces to no one in particular. Jack Gallagher kicked Jimmy in the ribs repeatedly, stopping only when Hasselfang helped put the dog's dick in Jimmy's mouth. Gallagher kicked him harder when he stopped sucking, opening his mouth to breathe. As I said, we were allowed to watch. 5. The House of Frankenstein, 2011. I had to stop typing for a few days, not because I was busy with other commitments. It was more like walking away from a relationship. Now it was the 1st of October, Halloween month. My memories of what that erstwhile football squad did with Jimmy Corcoran were blended with similar mental representations into that novella that I eventually named Lover Doll, after a song in an Elvis movie. I recall my early years, the White Room, the psychiatrist types I called the Skull Carpenters. The clock I never saw that timed the tasks that took forever. What was Corky? What was Jimmy Corcoran doing those years? Were his parents proud of him, or were they embarrassed? Come on now, you can be judgmental. Was he ever happy? Did he even know how to become happy? Were his parents proud when he took driver's education? We were in the same class. We had to take the class. Jimmy wasn't a savant, but I was the one that wrecked the car. New 1976 Pontiac Sunbirds, creamy yellow. The teachers full well knew I had cerebral palsy. I crashed into railroad trestles at 103rd and Drew, broke a window and whatever the hell it is underneath the car, and Mr. Vitale just took it all in stride. Whenever I hear Elton John sing Philadelphia Freedom or Rock the Boat by the Hughes Corporations, I think of walking a driver's ed on Saturday mornings. Could they just let Jimmy play the video test console like it was a game? Were his parents proud of him? I ask again, was the school pleased to have handled matters the way they did? In years to come, either by lawsuit or simple logical decision, handicapped children were not required to take driver's ed classes. In order to learn it, they would never have to learn it and have a driver's license. I have an Illinois ID card. It states that I'm an organ donor. The photo makes my head look like a pinto bean. We remained friends as we took the same bus route home. Burvid was a district attorney, last I heard. Another kid in our stupid clique joined the Coast Guard. Still another overdosed on booze and sleeping pills. Poor Swanson killed himself, hung himself from the swings in Scottsdale Park. People shopping in Goldblatt reported it to the police. During the winter of 1980, Jack Gallagher broke his neck in a car accident near Tallow Lake, Wisconsin. He became paralyzed from the neck down. The story in the paper was reported with appropriate sadness. Back then I graduated from Old Style to Seagram's and 7 as I started my hand at writing poetry and then fiction. I would see Gallagher and his chums at Groucho's as I scribbled away at my corner table. He had a long gray padded chair, like a dentist's chair. His head tipped far back. I guess he had some breathing difficulties. He was still drinking Old Style, his right-hand man Marquardt helping him out with a sippy straw. I'll not lie. There were nights after a few too many 7-7s where I wanted to break my glass and shove the shards into his fucking throat, tilt the chair back and let the cocksucker drown in his own blood as it filled his mouth and nose and dripped into his eyes as he stared upwards into my expressionless face. I only wish I had killed him because of what had happened years later. I'm going to stop it there. There's more to the Scarlet Sponge. It's kind of like a triptych. First I talked about what happened in the 70s. Then I do a short piece on my high school reunion, the only one I went to in 1987. I even make mention of my mentor, Dennis Etchison's, writing the book, excuse me, writing the story of The Chair, which is his high school reunion story. Every horror writer has a high school reunion story of some sort. Anyhow, then the third part is me writing in a diary form after I was hit by a car and ended up destroying my writing arm. You can even kind of see how it's shaped so weirdly. Regardless, this is just me, doing a practice round on something like this. As you can see, the first book by us is Double Dare. Eventually, we'll do Double Down, and then Double Death, I think, comes after that. As I sit here, I wonder where I'm getting all these wrinkles in my neck from. Anyhow, that's it for now. I did what I could with that. I know I don't read that well on tape, and that was the first. It's been a long time since I read those words or even typed those words, actually. All right, that's it. 17 and a half minutes in. Probably put this on sometime tomorrow. Everyone take care. Be careful out there.